How much time does learning actually take? I mean, really, it's a question every single one of us in education has to grapple with. So today, we're going to break down how to estimate what we call learner workload in a way that's fair, realistic, and honestly, a lot more human. Let's get into it.
You've seen this a million times, right? A course description says it's 100 hours or 120 hours, but what does that number actually represent? Are we just talking about the time everyone's sitting in a classroom together, or is there something more to it? This question, it really gets to the heart of a big shift in how we think about learning.
And to answer it, well, we need to change our perspective a bit. We need to move from just counting hours to really understanding the total effort involved.
Okay, so here's the fundamental difference. On one side, you have contact hours. That's the old school way of thinking, the time the teacher is actively leading the class. But on the other side, we have learner workload. And this is the whole picture. It's the total time and effort a person actually needs to put in to get to those learning outcomes.
The official definition makes it really clear. Learner workload is an estimate, and that's a key word, of the time an average learner needs to do everything required. It's not just about being present, it's about all the activities that lead to real learning. And what even counts as a learning activity? Well, it's a whole spectrum, right? It goes all the way from more passive things like listening to a lecture to really active engagement, like working with your peers. All of it is part of the journey, and all of it contributes to that total workload.
So let's break that down. What are we actually counting? Of course, you have your direct instruction time. But, and this is so important, it also includes something called supported practice. That's the time you build in for learners to try out a new skill, to practice, but with you right there to help. Then you've got group work, projects, applying skills in a practical way. It all adds up, and it all counts.
I absolutely love this analogy from the guide. It just clicks, doesn't it? A fitness plan isn't just that 1 hour you spend with a personal trainer. No way. It's the warm-up before, it's the exercises you do on your own, it's the cool-down after, it's the total effort to get fit. And it's exactly the same with learning.
All right, so we get the what, but what about the how? How do we actually go about estimating this stuff realistically? Let's get practical.
This is probably the most crucial part. You don't start by picking a number of hours out of thin air. No, you start with the outcomes. Ask yourself, what should my learners be able to do when this is all over? Once you have that answer, you design all the activities that will get them to that point. And only then, at the very end, do you estimate the time. The goal drives the plan, and the plan determines the workload.
Now, you might be wondering, why bother with a number at all? Well, it helps us speak a common language. For example, in the European system, there's a general rule of thumb that about 25 to 30 hours of total learner workload is roughly the same as one ECTS credit. It's just a way to make the effort transparent. But, and I really want to emphasize this is a tool for being clear and open. It is not an exact science. So please don't get stressed about hitting a perfect number. The goal is just to give an honest, realistic estimate so everyone knows what to expect.
Let's look at a super simple example. Let's say your course has 60 hours of classroom time, but you've also planned for 40 hours of that supported practice and group work we talked about. You just add them together. That's a total workload of 100 hours. Then, if you want that ECTS number, you divide by 25. Boom. That's 4 credits. See? It's just a straightforward way to show the whole effort.
Theory is one thing, but what happens when this meets the real world? Let's talk about a really powerful lesson that came out of a pilot program.
So, a pilot program in Spain used this very methodology with a group of vulnerable adults. And that's a really important detail because for these learners, life gets in the way. Things like time, money, and stress are huge factors in whether they can even show up to learn. Okay, so check this out. Their first plan for the course had a lot of independent work. Homework, stuff to do on your own time. But as they got to know their learners, they realized that just wasn't going to work. So what did they do? They changed the plan. They shifted the focus away from that solo work and built in more guided group activities that could happen right there in a supportive space.
And their conclusion is something I think we all need to hear. For their specific group of learners, they've found that it was simply unrealistic to expect significant autonomous work outside the classroom. And that wasn't a judgment on the learners, not at all. It was a recognition of their real lives. The workload plan had to change to match reality.
And that story, that lesson from the field, it really brings us to the main takeaway here, the single most important idea to hold on to. If you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Good workload planning does two things perfectly. One, it starts with clear learning outcomes. And two, it always respects the reality of your learners' lives. It's about being really intentional with your design, but also incredibly humane with your expectations. Okay, so now we have a much better handle on estimating the actual effort a course takes. But that brings up the next big question, doesn't it? How do we actually know if all that effort paid off? How do we know if the learning was successful? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into in our next explainer. I'll see you then.